Hello and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Concrete Conversations, a podcast from the Tennessee Concrete Association. And I am your host today, Alan Sparkman, Executive Director for TCA. This podcast will be a look forward, a fall look forward, as we're getting really close to the fall of 2023. Hard to believe, seems like the year just started, but lo and behold, we are well past the halfway point. First, a quick look back at some production statistics for Tennessee for the current year. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but Tennessee now has set 3 record years for concrete production in a row. So 2020, we got back above 8 million cubic yards for the first time at about 8.4 million cubic yards. 2021, we broke through the 9 million cubic yard barrier with about 9.1 million cubic yards in 2021. And in 2022, we were up to about 9.2, perhaps just a little bit more, but about 9.2 million cubic yards in the state of Tennessee. You may recall in our last podcast, we had numbers for the first quarter of 2023. Those numbers showed that we were up by 12%, and those first quarter numbers are always a little bit suspect because of the variability of the weather here in Tennessee the first part of the year. But we do now have numbers for the second quarter, and we are up 7% over our record production of 9.2 million cubic yards that we set in 2022. So being up 7% at the midpoint of the year, pretty strong. So the market in Tennessee continues to be pretty good. That equates to almost 4.8 million cubic yards in the first half of the year. When you look at total U.S. production in 2023, we're actually down a little more than 2% versus last year, where we were able to break through the 400 million cubic yard mark for the first time since the Great Recession. So that was pretty significant. But this year we're down a little bit, not dramatically, but a little. And if predictions hold for the remainder of the year, we may drop just under that 400 million cubic yard mark for 2023. There's still a lot of time left in the year, and of course a lot of things that will play out, including the weather over the rest of the year. But pretty positive outlook, and especially positive here in Tennessee as we continue to outperform the average for concrete construction markets in the U.S., and we're very pleased with that. The supply chain issues this year have been very quiet compared to 2022, when they were a huge challenge and they seemed to come from everywhere. So far this year, our members don't report really any issues with the basic materials. We have seen a switch in most of Tennessee markets from Type 1 cement to a Type 1L cement, Portland limestone cement. Thankfully, that is not causing too many problems that we're hearing about here in Tennessee. That is an issue in some other parts of the country, but that seems to have been a fairly smooth transition for us. We also have in this market, kind of in the Mid-South, we have some new supply of cement that came online late last year and is continuing to be available this year. So we've seen a good, steady supply of Portland cement throughout the year. We've not had issues thus far with aggregates. Transportation has evened out. Some concern earlier in the year about the water level in the Mississippi, but so far as we've gone through most of the summer, that has not proven to be a constraint like it was late in 2022. So that's all good news. that results in concrete deliveries being easier to schedule. In a lot of markets, considerably easier, a lot less lead time, and back to what we might consider normal in terms of scheduling. So again, also very, very positive. The outlook for the remainder of the year and then looking forward in the short term, TCA hosted Edsel Charles with Market Graphics in late July for a webinar focused on residential construction. And just to summarize that, we are seeing some weakening of residential construction in Tennessee, especially as you compare it to the prior month in 2022, which was a very strong year. We saw those decreases in most of the major markets across Tennessee. Some were more dramatic than others, but as we got to the middle of the year, we started to see actually in a few cases that new housing starts were up on a month-over-month basis in a couple of markets. So that trend pretty clear in the first 6 months of the year, with new housing starts being less than they were in 2022, perhaps by 10-15% in some markets. But a lot of strength, I think a lot more resilience in residential than many people thought we had, and especially in all of Tennessee's markets. While we're off the peaks that we set for new starts in 2022, we're still at a very good level of construction. A lot of markets are seeing a shift to more multifamily housing. That's a trend across the United States, and it's certainly a trend here in Tennessee. But those starts continue to be strong across the state. So when you look Edsel's outlook for the rest of this year, 2023, he thinks we're going to hit the bottom in November of this year, so we may see a little bit more decline in some areas. We'll stay pretty flat along that bottom, and remember that bottom is at a pretty high level. It's not a bottom like we saw in the Great Recession, but we're going to stay at that somewhat reduced level of activity, probably past the midpoint of 2024, and then we're going to start to see some recovery in the number of new housing starts in that second half of 2024. So that's a pretty positive report. We've been watching reports on construction, non-residential construction, which has remained strong throughout the year and continues to be strong. The picture is a little less clear perhaps than it was a year or two ago with commercial, when it seemed like almost every sector was booming. Now we're seeing the impact of mega projects. Of course, Tennessee has at least one project that qualifies for that status. In West Tennessee, the Blue Oval project. Lots of states are seeing these mega projects, and they are spawning not just the large project themselves, but there's a lot of follow-on construction that happens when one of these big institutions like the Blue Oval production factory is coming online. And we're already starting to see this, not just in West Tennessee, but in other Tennessee locations and sometimes in surrounding states. There's significant investment for the supply chain of car manufacturing, and that's resulting in what some are calling a manufacturing super cycle in terms of the number of projects that are being built and the amount of money that's being invested. All of that's very positive, very strong for concrete and for construction in general. But if you're in an area where there is not a mega project right around the corner, then you may see some declines in your market. So it's really good if you're in an area where you have these projects and they have a pretty wide circle of influence. But if you're in an area where one of those projects is not close at hand, then that's an area where you might expect to see the level of construction and the level of concrete production go down somewhat. Related to that is the DOT construction market. There is a lot of money that's now coming online. This is mostly federal money. We've talked about this in the past, but Tennessee was one of the best states at getting the money from the federal pipeline into projects in the state of Tennessee. They were ahead of most other states, and so that's certainly worth noting, and it's a good reflection on our DOT that they were prepared for that and have aggressively moved to get that money out of the pipeline and onto the ground somewhere to improve transportation for all of us here in Tennessee. That equates to about a 20% bump in the level of construction for most states. Again, no different here in Tennessee. Inflation has eaten into that to some extent, but we're going to see DOT construction, public construction, support the entire construction market, particularly on the heavy, the civil, the infrastructure markets. That's going to set a baseline of support, not just in 2023, but for the next 3 or 4 years, that will mean good things for the concrete production numbers pretty much across the board. If you're in an area where there is not a lot of DOT work going on, then you're not going to benefit directly from that. But overall, the industry will benefit, and that's one of the reasons I'm reasonably optimistic that we will likely set another concrete production record, which would be 4 years in a row by the end of 2023. So we'll see how that goes as we get a bit closer. A lot of things going on with TCA as we pass the mid-year point and we look forward to fall. We're launching 2 new programs that we think are going to have a very positive impact on workforce for the construction industry. TCA is one of several associations working on a program called Be Pro, Be Proud Tennessee. TCA is one of several construction-related organizations for whom the workforce crunch is particularly acute, in large part because we often depend on younger workers to fill particularly entry-level positions in our industry. The demographics, when you look at them, are not good. In fact, they're scary for all industries, again, particularly industries like construction that rely on younger, post-high school students as for a large part of the workforce, because those numbers are declining and they are not projected to increase for at least a couple of decades. So we have a supply side problem in terms of the number of people that are coming into the workforce. And then in construction, and again, we're not alone here, we have the issue of whether or not people actually want to work in our industry. So Be Pro, Be Proud is an effort to introduce people at the high school level to the many opportunities that exist in the construction trades. So TCA is there on behalf of the concrete industry. We're focusing on CDL driving opportunities as well as construction opportunities for a lot of things that involve concrete. And this program officially launches on September 25th in Gallatin. A lot of the state legislators, school officials, a lot of folks, industry people will be there. And it's really exciting to see this program officially kick off after about a 2-year period of trying to make it happen. So you can go to the Be Pro, Be Proud Tennessee website if you want more information. You can just Google Be Pro, Be Proud Tennessee, find your way to the website, learn more about the program. And really importantly, at that website, there is a link where you can schedule the truck for a high school in your area. So you may want to make your local high schools aware of this opportunity. They can go to this website, click the link. There's no cost to the high school. That's what the the folks behind the program like TCA are doing. We're financially supporting this. We're raising support to make this available. But it's a great experience in the truck. Lots of different workstations there that expose high school students to the opportunities that are out there for careers they can pursue immediately out of high school. So we're very excited about that. We are also this year launching another program also targeted to high schools called Skate for Concrete. This is a Concrete 101 curriculum designed for high school level students. It can integrate into any of the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, math. So it doesn't have to be taught in a construction class because it touches on all those disciplines using concrete as the focal point, and also tying in with skate parks, which are made from concrete. That's what professional skaters prefer, is concrete. So it's a really cool combination of something that a lot of high school students like to do recreationally, and then tying that to the opportunities that exist for careers in the concrete industry. So we're really excited about this. We've been working to get in touch with teachers and with high schools across the state. And currently we have about 20 high schools that have signed up to offer this curriculum in the 2023-2024 school year. We are working to connect those schools with TCA members in their community so that there's local support. And we feel like this is a great way to get the concrete message to high school students who will soon be selecting career paths. So it's very complementary to the Be Pro, Be Proud program, coming from a slightly different angle, but we're really looking forward to this and to supporting those schools that offer this curriculum in the fall of 23 or the spring of 24. We're also adding an awards category to our annual Concrete Design Awards just for these high school programs that offer the Skate for Concrete curriculum. So that's also a good segue for me to plug all of our members. We're getting ready to open up the application process for the 2024 Concrete Design Awards, where we look to honor great concrete projects, great concrete people, and great concrete plants across the state of Tennessee. So you can visit our website. We're going to open that submission process very soon. Our website is tnconcrete.org. You can also visit the workforce section of our website to learn more about both the programs we've already mentioned, Skate for Concrete and Be Pro, Be Proud Tennessee. Before we finish up, I just want to mention that our TRMCA Scholarship Golf Outing is coming up on October 25th. This is our primary fundraiser for our support of scholarships at MTSU for the Concrete Industry Management Program. We have a goal this year to break 100 players at this event. So registration for this is open, again, at our website, tnconcrete.org. We're looking for foursomes, for individual players, for whole sponsors, and the net proceeds of this event go to our scholarship foundation to fund those scholarships at MTSU. So really, really important. Finally, mark off on your calendars for early 2024, our 2024 annual meeting, which will be February 7th and 8th at our usual location at the Franklin Cool Springs Marriott in Franklin, Tennessee. We have a full program both days this year, so mark those dates off, and we'll be opening registration for that a bit later in the fall. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support of Concrete in Tennessee.